Hello, everybody. Welcome to the candidate forum for the two candidates running for the Democratic endorsement for the North District City Council seat. I'm Abbey Duke. I live in the Village Green neighborhood, and I'm the Ward 7 chair for Burlington Democrats. I want to thank both Kerin Durfee and Kienan Christianson for stepping up to run for a city council seat. It's a really important job, and it is not easy, and it is a lot of work.
Hi, everyone. My name is Owen. I'm the co-moderator here as well. I'm the president of the UVM College Democrats. The format for tonight is pretty simple. Each candidate will give an opening remark for 5 minutes each, and then Abby and I will take turns asking questions. We have a list of pre-prepared questions that were submitted beforehand, and we'll also be monitoring the chat for any questions from all of you. So feel free, if you have a question, to put it in the chat.
Once we start asking questions, each candidate has up to 2 minutes to answer each question. And we're going to ask questions and get answers until 7:55. And then each candidate will get 2 minutes to kind of do a wrap up, and with the goal of ending at 8 o'clock. But after the forum is over, there will be a link on the YouTube site so people can watch it, or you can share it with your friends.
We flipped a coin before we started to see who would go first, and Kienan won, and he chose to go second for opening remarks. So we'll get started with Kerin. You'll have 5 minutes, and I'll hold up a sign at 2 minutes, 1 minute, and 30 seconds. But whenever you're ready, time will start when you begin talking.
Okay, I'm talking. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kerin Durfee, and I'm running for the North District City Council seat. Thank you to the Burlington Democratic Party and the University of Vermont for providing this platform for thoughtful discussion. I'm so grateful to be living here where I do. Every day I look out from my window on North Avenue and reflect on what brought me to the city. I discovered North Beach some 26 or 27 years ago now when I was working for a grocery retail chain in Rutland. My kids and I love the beach, and we would make the hour-and-a-half drive from Rutland to Burlington and stay all day. Eventually, we discovered Liddy Beach and Ethan Allen Park, and my work allowed us to come to Burlington often, but it still remained unaffordable for us to live here. After years of visiting Burlington, we were able to move into an apartment on the South End, but like so many, a better job opportunity took us out of the city once again. Finally, in 2006, I took a management position and a pay cut to work at City Market and commuted for years just to be here and be part of this caring, vocal, and active community. I'm running for City Council for the North District to help bring the voice of the people back to City Council. As I interact with community members, albeit from a distance and virtually these days, I have the privilege of listening to the issues that matter most to new North Enders and the challenges they face in their everyday lives. The pandemic has only compounded these issues, concerns about taxes, schools, and public safety. These are the very issues that come up in conversation, but they're also in the forefront of my own mind. The cornerstone of my platform is public safety. Like most North District residents, I'm concerned about the impact of COVID-19 on our families and our livelihoods. The pandemic impacted all of our lives, and I feel grateful to live in both the city and state where we believe in science, protects us all. I currently serve as a police commissioner on the Burlington Police Commission. As a commissioner, my goal is to balance the need for police reform with the need for a responsive and capable police force. In a time of increased economic uncertainty for our families and our small businesses, it's important to prioritize the financial health of our community. Like most residents, I was surprised by and rejected the Just Economy Charter change proposal presented in June. Knowing that the school bond will take effect this coming year and that our community will still be recovering from the economic impacts of the pandemic, a proposal to increase taxes even more seems tone deaf and not reflective of the difficulties many of us are facing. As your North District City Council, I will continue to speak up on racial justice, inviting more voices to the conversations happening at the city level. We need to create a safe space for the voices that are not being heard and acknowledge the fact that we need to work together to create a community that is an example of what it means to eradicate divisions built on racist foundations. The North District is home to communities of color, many who are not yet comfortable in joining the citywide conversation that began with the protests this summer. I'd like to end on a note of optimism. As we continue to navigate these uncertain times, I remain hopeful that together we can deliver the desperate change needed at the city level. When I first crested the hill off of Route 2 onto Main Street some 26 years ago, and I got my first glimpse of Lake Champlain glistening in the sun, I knew I would make this city my home, and I am proud to be here, and my work will always be reflective of that. That's why I'm only seeking the Democratic Party nomination. As a resident of the North District, I believe it's important to give voters a clear choice, not one complicated with promises of multiple parties. As your city council, I will be pragmatic, listening and seeking the input of my North District neighbors. I'm looking forward to this forum, and I thank you for listening.
Awesome. And next is Kienan. Kienan, you'll have 5 minutes as well, and time will start when you begin talking.
Well, thank you so much for everyone that's here. I really want to thank Abby, Owen, and Kevin for putting this together on the Democratic Committee. I really appreciate all the time and effort that went into this. My name is Kienan Christianson, and I'm running for the North District City Council seat. And what's motivating me to run is because I care deeply about my community and I care deeply about my neighbors. When I first moved here 6 years ago, the first neighborhood we looked at was the New North End. And the thing that struck me about the New North End was just how welcoming and inclusive so many of my neighbors were. When we bought our home, we were excited to be here. I remember very vividly when Nicole and Christine came down the block to welcome us to the neighborhood. They brought us Hetty Topper and a fabulous chocolate cake. First time I'd ever had Hetty Topper. It was fabulous. And to me, that kind of community connection and community engagement is really what makes the New North End special and what makes the New North End such a unique neighborhood throughout the Burlington area. I'm running for city council because I want to make sure that no matter what happens with this pandemic, we are laser focused on supporting our neighbors most impacted by the pandemic. We know that Tom is having trouble keeping the New North End food pantry stocked. We know that there are 1 in 4 Vermonters are going hungry. And so we as a city need to do everything we can to support our neighbors who are struggling right now. I'm running for city council because I can get stuff done. I worked with the Burlington School District recently on a number of projects, and what has struck me is that the school district needs our help and needs our support. The twin crises of the COVID-19 pandemic and the PCV issue has caused not only financial chaos for the district, but has created logistical challenges for our neighbors and for our families. For me, I think it's important that our city and our school district work in tandem and that we work together to find solutions. I'm excited that we found the Macy's as a location for our high school students. And I think we can have our businesses lean in to provide, just like what the Burlington technical community did, opportunities for our students in this moment so that we can continue their educational opportunities and keep them on path to graduating. I'm running for city council because I want to see a New North End that has a guiding economic star informed by its neighbors and informed by the fabulous local businesses that reside here. We have so many neighbors that have chosen the New North End to be their place to launch their business, and we can work together to make sure that we promote them. I'm excited to be working with Ollie Dang and Eric Monson to be creating a New North End business association. And I think that there's so much more we can do to promote the fabulous local businesses that live right next door to us here in the New North End. I'm running for city council because I want to do more to address the housing affordability issue. We know that it's difficult to purchase a home in Burlington. Many of my friends have chosen to live outside of Burlington because it's just not accessible. We need to be doing everything we can to make sure that whether you're starting a new family, whether you've got a great job at Burton or one of the many other fabulous businesses here in town, or whether you're retiring, there's a place for you here in Burlington, and there's a place for you here in the New North End. Finally, I'm running for city council because there's so much more we can do to not only keep our community safe, but address some of the very serious concerns we have about the way that we're conducting public safety and the way that we think about public safety. I'm running for city council because I believe in building bridges. As a progressive Democrat, I'm excited to have the endorsement of the Progressive Party, and I'm excited to be seeking the endorsement of the Democratic Party because I believe in bringing people together. And if I'm fortunate enough to be elected as your next city councilor, here's my commitment to you. I promise to lift up your voices, to take your concerns to City Hall, to listen clearly to all of you and make sure that no matter what name you ascribe to or what party you ascribe to, your concerns are being heard at City Hall and you feel like you're getting a fair shake here in Burlington. I really want to thank everyone for coming out here tonight. I hope that you and your families are safe. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Keenan. Okay, so now we're going to go into the question period. Remember to put questions in the chat that you want us to ask. But we do have a bunch that the people submitted ahead of time. So we'll start with those. Number one, people in New North End sometimes feel like we are sort of outliers in the city. And I'd like you to name 3 things that you would do to improve communication and engagement between residents of the New North End and the city. Kerin, why don't you go first?
Sure. I thought my internet froze. Improve. So the question is 3 things that I would improve to. I didn't hear it because I know it froze. Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry. So it's basically 3 things. What would you do, or do you have some ideas to improve communication between the New North End and the city?
Yeah, that's been a challenge. Definitely with COVID and having everything on Zoom. I've talked about this with a few folks, and I definitely would create. I've done something with my campaign, which is conversations with Kerin, and I've done these virtual conversations, and I think those are really important. I probably would continue to do that and invite folks into the conversation, whatever conversation's happening at a city level. I've used flyers. I've gone around during the racial justice protests in Battery Park. I printed the resolution, the racial justice resolution, and distributed it. People needed information. Not everybody had a computer down there, so I went out and distributed. I think it's really important too, because some of the language is people need to sit down and talk to you about it. So I think that's really important. And I think constituent response, that's what I'm hearing all over the city, is an issue. I'm a responder. I'm going to answer your question, and I'm going to make sure that I get to it. I'm going to make sure that I get to you. And I've been using email. The impacts of the pandemic do make it hard, but I think that's what I would continue to do, is continue to have both electronic forums, definitely distribute information. And then if there was a big issue, I find sometimes with ballot items or big, resolutions going through, I think there just really needs to be, even if you used a flyer, I think I would do that. Definitely get the word out, because I definitely think it's an issue.
Thank you. Keenan, it's your turn.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think that communication between City Hall and our neighborhood is vitally important. And I think that there are many ways that we can go about making sure that you all have opportunities to connect, not only with your city councilor, but with each other. I was proud to have launched the community dinner after my door knocking on many neighbors' doors, and hearing that more community connection is what people were craving out here. It was exciting to see 75 to 150 neighbors coming out before the neighborhood planning assembly and then engaging in our local democracy. I was proud to have launched the book group with Martine Gulick to ensure that our neighbors across the avenues had opportunities to connect with one another outside of City Hall in kind of more traditional settings. And I was proud to have launched Community Brews, which not only supported our fabulous local brewery, Simple Roots, but again, allowed neighbors to talk to one another in a less stressful setting. COVID certainly has created challenges, but I do think it's really important that we continue to talk to one another and that we continue to engage with one another. I think that the program that the Heineberg Senior Center has put together with the Senior Buddies is one way that we can continue to connect with one another. And I think that amplifying that citywide is so important, because it ensures that not only do our seniors have connection, but that we can connect our high school students who may also be having impacts on their mental health. And then we can continue to support one another across our communities. I've made over 800 phone calls already to people. I'm very committed to hearing from you. If there's ever an issue, please just give me a call or text me. It's 448-0323.
Awesome. And the next question, we'll actually start with Keenan this time, since Kerin started the last one. What do you see as the proper role of police and the police department?
I think that our police department does a fantastic job of making sure that our communities are safe and making sure that community members feel welcome here. But, we have some issues that we need to work out with the police department. And more importantly, we need to be thinking more creatively about what it means to engage in public safety. I'm really proud to have put together a platform that focuses on transforming what public safety looks like. It's informed by research I had done extensively throughout the summer. Seth Sutton, who's a police officer and runs the police research clinic at the NYU. I read his book that came out this summer, and there's many fantastic ideas that we can put in place that not only allow our community members to engage with policing, but also, move some obligations off of the police department's the plate. I think that refunding our mental health clinics and refunding our crisis intervention teams is very important to ensuring that when our neighbors are having mental health crises, that we're giving them the support, not just in the moment of the crisis, but engaging with them before the crisis even happens so that we can make sure that, you don't have that mental health break. I think that we can continue to invest in our schools and our after-school programs that allow students to engage in fantastic programs that not only keep students engaged, but again, keep our communities connected. When we think about what public safety could mean, it's really about investing in our communities and investing in who we are as a neighborhood. And I think that the more we do to support other opportunities to engage with our community is so important. I'm thinking of, safe injection sites and interventions in supporting people who are dealing with the opioid pandemic, which is still raging even right now in the pandemic. It's impacting people even more. I'm really proud of the work that many of our police officers have done. I've worked extensively with Nikki Moyer in the domestic violence field, and I think that we have many fantastic officers, but I think that there are many ways that we can transform our public safety. I see that I'm out of time. Thank you.
Awesome. And Kerin.
Sorry. Those are some great answers, and it's always hard to be second, but that's a hard act to follow. As a police commissioner, this is you're going to be able to tune in tomorrow night. You're going to be able to tune in and listen to the Public Safety and Police Commission Joint Committee on Police Transformation. Talk about ideas. There's just been some wonderful ideas. I think I'm looking forward to really. When I talk to constituents, there is a concern, and I think mental health services have been. 30 years ago, mental health services were, thriving, and now, we've cut them, and so it had a direct impact on the police department. The police are responding to calls that should be responded, to, and our mental health crisis. So I completely agree with that. I think what I would like to see is, what I'm excited to see is there's an RFP process that's going to take place in our city. It's going to assess the Burlington Police Department, its resources, its officers, and really do that work at a professional level. Though I'm, a proponent of the resolution that passed, I think we needed to do some work. I think Councillor Dang had some really good amendment ideas to that resolution, but here we are. The resolution's passed, we're doing the work. And I really think an assessment from professionals will tell us where we need to go. And in terms of community, absolutely, working together, Kienan just mentioned everything, from schools to seniors. We need to be connected, and we need to be, together doing the work. And I feel like we're very segmented right now as a community. So yeah, pulling it back together, pulling it back to the police commission and the work that I've been doing, I would agree there's a ton of possibilities, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
Thank you. So for this next one, Kerin, you will go first. There has been discussion about having the city council be more involved with the school system, and especially Burlington High School and facility issues. But under state law, the school district is a separate jurisdiction, and we have a school board. What would you do differently?
I think we have an amazing school board, quite frankly. And, again, I'm not a politician. I don't have a prepared answer, but quite frankly, I've been so impressed with Superintendent Flanagan and the entire team dealing with this crisis, from PCBs to a pandemic. And I've been very impressed about how quickly they move. I'm not, I don't think as a person at BHS, I've got a student there, that although it was very difficult to get through, I don't see a huge issue with saying, oh, the city council needs to get involved. I feel like the school board and the folks that are, especially, I can't say enough, the superintendent, has been so responsive. I'm not sure having the city council be involved would be something that I'd be a proponent of. I see that board working very, very, very quickly, and they're very, very responsive. As I've called, I've said, when is this going to end? What are we going to do? And right now, as I look out my window, I see the tech students across the street in the bottom of Cambrian Rise. I know the Macy's deal is done. And so I would say no on that, especially with the way the city council currently functions.
Thank you. Kienan?
I think that how we engage with the school board is that we end the kind of siloing of the school district from the city. And I'm really proud. I just want to echo what Kerin said. I'm really proud of our school board. And I'm really proud of Martine Gulick, Kendra Sowers, and Monica Vancic, the incredible work that our local school commissioners have put in, not only to securing Tom Flanagan, who is a fantastic superintendent, but to the many hours and many, many late nights that they put in trying to figure out the dual crisis of COVID and the PCB closure of the high school. I'm proud to have the endorsement of Henry Sparks, the Director of Equity and Inclusion at the school district. I am incredibly committed to be working directly with our school commissioners and supporting them in whatever they need. I think that traditionally we have allowed the city and the school district to kind of operate on parallel tracks. And I think the more that we talk to one another, the more that we engage with one another, the more that we can augment and support the many fantastic things that the school district does. For example, the food distribution program that the school put together for our students was incredibly successful. I would love to see the city model that across the city to increase food security. I think the work that the school district has done on racial equity and LGBTQ rights is phenomenal. We need to be working closely with them and figuring out exactly how we can augment that in the city. And then the city has an important role to support the school district. I think that when the school was trying to figure out where to house our students at Macy's, the city absolutely could have helped in that regard. We could have helped with, maybe working with UVM or Champlain College, or heck, maybe even talking to Burton or dealer.com and seeing, if they have space that's available, or maybe a training program that we can, move some students into so that we continue their educational opportunities. I think it's about continuing the conversation and reaching out and saying, how can I help? And that's what I'm really interested in if I'm your next city councilor.
Awesome. The next question, City Place, the development at the heart of the downtown Burlington is at a standstill. What would you support and advocate for that area to become a vibrant part of the city landscape again? And I think we're starting with Kienan this time.
City Place, the perennial question. My old office overlooks the hole in the ground, and I know many of us want to know, what are we going to do with that? I'm excited to see that folks are moving into the mediation process, but I got to be honest with you. If we're just going to litigate this hole into the ground, the only people that win are the attorneys. We as a community will not, and that's going to delay development for years to come. I mean, I'm thinking of my own legal practice, and a lawsuit nowadays used to take 2 to 3 years. We're looking at 3 to 6 because of COVID. I don't want to see that hole kept there for 3 to 6 more years as we continue to litigate and churn legal fees, which only serves to drive up the cost of the project. What I'd like to do is continue to negotiate in good faith with developers, and then if we're unable to come to an agreement, we need to be exploring in a cost benefit kind of analysis whether it's worth perhaps using the eminent domain power of the city to take back that land and work with local developers like the AFL-CIO to bring in new talent and bring in new ideas. I think that if we're, I sit on the development review board, I see these giant projects all the time, and many of them are quite successful. Burton just recently was approved of a redevelopment project down in the South End. And I think I would love to see the same kind of community engagement that Burton put in to not only connecting with neighbors, but then addressing their concerns in the project. I think that's so important. And I think that, I wish I had a silver bullet for this is the solution for City Place. But what I will tell you is I'm not going to waste a lot of time litigating the development into the ground. I want to see movement on it. And if that means we need to start exploring eminent domain or other options to bring it back into city ownership, then so be it. And that gives us an opportunity to not only re-envision what could happen there, but it also allows us to really build up the housing development so that we're getting new housing online for many of our neighbors.
Awesome. And Kerin, the same question to you.
Yeah, I really could not agree more. I'm not a proponent of litigating it any more than it needs to be. And it is the question that you're going to get asked when you start getting involved typically. But truly, I'm hoping the local developer partnerships will work. We need those. We need 85 units. We need that development to succeed. We need parking. We need everything that it can bring forward. I think one of the things that I'm excited to hear is movement on the conversation. I think with the high school, it's all connected. I think Kienan alluded to this where, it's all connected with the high school. You start to see a sign of life. You start to see something moving, something happening. And, I'm excited. I really do feel that it is going to move forward. I've been listening into the city council meetings. I don't really have anything to add to Keenan's comments. The only thing that I would say is, we got into this mess, and a mess it is. But I'm really confident with the conversations that I've been hearing at City Council and some of the things that I've seen and heard, from local developers that it's going to move forward. So nothing to add. All great comments. Very exciting. We're all ready for it to go away. I cannot see it from my office, but I don't want to see it. So I was hoping for a skating rink, but I think we're headed in the right direction. We need to stay strong on that.
Great, thanks. So this is a question that just came in on the chat from Rachel Smith. I'm concerned about making sure city councilors are responsive to people, not big business. Do you have any parameters on the donations you will take? Oh, and this goes to Kerin first.
Thank you, Rachel, for your question. Thanks for watching. I hope we have more than 9 people, but thank you for watching. Yes, I do have parameters on the donations that I will take. I think that was the question. I think it's easy to, build support for a campaign for city council. It's not something that you really need to, nothing's worth compromising your morals. And so I would ask a couple of, follow-up questions to that, but I think the answer for me is no. I think it's really important to define, who will people take money from, who will they not, and what is the issue, so I'm not really 100% sure, but yes, I definitely have parameters on how much and who I will take funds from. It's a city council race, and it should not have to be expensive, and it should not, your fundraising really shouldn't get in the way of the people. And I think that you said something also about, I want city councilors to respond. I think I talked about this before, but I'll definitely respond. I'm a hard worker, and I'll work, to make sure that I'm reaching out to the community and making sure that people are heard. I will not be giving my phone number out, but
thank you, Kerin.
It's on my website.
Kienan.
Yeah, it's very simple. I only take donations from my neighbors and from individuals. I don't accept campaign donations from businesses. And that's because I'm all about my community and being responsive to them. I'm not seeking to represent any sort of special interests. I'm just here to represent my community and my neighborhoods. As far as responsiveness goes, my cell phone again is 802-448-0323. Feel free to give me a text, give me a call. Happy to chat with you.
Awesome. So our next question comes about housing. The average 1-bedroom apartment rents for around $1,400 per month in Burlington. What would you advocate for to increase the affordability of housing? And Kienan, you'll go first this time.
This is such a great question. I love it. So There's so many of the issues are connected. We talk about climate change, we talk about public transportation, we talk about housing. So many of these issues are interconnected. One of the things that we can do is reduce parking requirements in some of the new developments that we're doing. It's something that we've been exploring on the Development Review Board, and I know that people downtown and at City Hall have been talking about. But what's also important for our community is that we also increase opportunities for public transportation. I know it's a little weird to be talking about that in the time of COVID, but we're eventually going to be moving beyond COVID. And we, again, need to be refocusing on how we make public transportation, particularly for folks who live way at the end of Ethan Allen Parkway or way off of Shore Road, that they have access to the bus system in a way that doesn't require them to walk a mile to get there. I think that when we think about parking requirements, that's one of the main things that is sort of snagging these kind of smaller development of apartments. I was actually talking to Nancy Ellis, who owns a house downtown, and it's too cost prohibitive for her to renovate the house to have these 1-bedroom apartments because she just couldn't get the parking requirements for it. And so I think for me, we need to be examining the kinds of zoning that we have in place and the kind of requirements we have in place, because many of them are having unintended consequences that drive up the cost of housing here in Burlington. And it also gives us an opportunity to really do our part to address climate change here at the local level, to reduce carbon emissions. The COVID-19 pandemic is a symptom of climate change, and we need to be doing everything we can as a city to be making not only public transportation more attractive, but more accessible for folks, so that as we reduce parking requirements downtown, we're not privileging those who live downtown's access to downtown. We're also making it easy for folks in the New North End to get there as well.
Awesome. And Kerin, the same question.
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, the question was, the average 1-bedroom apartment rents for around $1,400 a month in Burlington. What would you advocate for to increase the affordability of housing?
I think I say, in every time I talk about this city, is how much I wanted to live here and how I couldn't afford to do so. We've been talking about housing prices and affordability for many, many years. I mean, in the 30 years that I've been in the state of Vermont, this has been a conversation. And, I do think there are things that probably come through, DRB, there's things that come through Planning Commission, there's all kinds of solutions, that talk about modifications for where we live. I think it comes down to demand. I mean, there simply isn't enough housing. There simply is not enough housing. And that's why I'm excited to support City Place. I'm especially excited about those 85 units. And, I support the development across the street. I mean, it's a tough call. And I know that it's a very, it's very, tough in Vermont to think, well, I really want to live here, but can I afford it? I mean, these are New York City rents that we have here. So I think it's a community. It has to involve local developers. It has to involve wages, talk about interconnectivity. I mean, wages in this city have to move as well. So, Kienan's mentioned parking, I'm mentioning wages, I'm mentioning demand, Kienan had, a number of things. I mean, it is a very complex issue. And to me, it really comes down to, supporting development. And I'm talking about really being a conscious developer and committed to our community. The reason that I support the development across the street, that's a local person doing the right thing. And I love seeing Juniper House and CHT going in there. So yeah, I think we need to boost the number of units that are available to drive down the prices.
Thank you. Next question, Kerin, you will go first this time. Some Progressive Party councilors have proposed a 1% local income tax. Do you support this? Why or why not?
Look, I'm not going to pretend to be know everything about everything. I'm not an expert on a lot of the things that are going through City Council. But one thing, I can't support and don't support right now is yet another tax. That's a big concern. Kienan knows his neighbors. It's a big concern in our area. It's a big concern for us. A 1% income tax, it sounds like it's very small, but right now I think we just need to pump the brakes on taxation for a little bit and just come around to a conversation that I'd like to talk about taxes as a whole. I'd like to talk about, all of the tax proposals and really sit down and really measure out how that's going to impact my neighbors, my neighborhood, and the entire city. So the short answer is no. Maybe I'm not educated enough on the 1% proposal, but I've been saying I feel like a broken record on taxes. Right now, no.
Thank you. Kienan, same question.
The answer is no. And I think that, I admire the spirit that is motivating the desire for the increase. I think that making folks who have, significant means pay their fair share. It's something that Bernie Sanders always talks about, making the millionaires and billionaires actually pay their taxes and actually contribute. But, I don't think that the current proposal is getting us there. And quite frankly, I think it is going to be driving up the affordability issue here in Burlington. And, we are dealing with the pandemic right now where people are just not, there's currently a eviction moratorium. There's currently a foreclosure moratorium. But when we're coming out of the crisis, we can't just be, adding on to people's bills as they're, trying to dig out. I'd actually love to be exploring ways that we can make the tax burden easier for folks, particularly out here, because of how many people are just barely getting by right now. And we need to be uplifting our neighbors who are impacted, not, piling on top of them. And, I think that, again, I like the ethos that's motivating it. I just don't think that this proposal is the right proposal. And I think that, as we sort of move forward with the crisis, let's start thinking about ways that we can help support our neighbors and help ease their tax burden as we're moving into recovery.
Awesome. Our next question, and we'll start with Kienan again. Bike lanes have been a challenge. How do you propose balancing the safety of bicycles with the use of vehicles on North Ave and the aesthetics of the neighborhood?
This is bread and butter issue for the new North End. I know that the bike lanes on North Avenue were not well received by some neighbors and well received by others. And look, this is about process, and this is about engaging people in that process. And what happened with the bike lanes and the way that process went down, I don't think was fair to the neighbors that didn't want it. But now we have the bike lanes, and so we need to think about how to move forward with them in a way that is safe. I was a little bit surprised this summer when the cones came in. I know that was miffed a lot of neighbors, but there is a balancing act here, because as someone who runs along North Avenue and runs in the bike lane, I did feel a lot safer knowing that those protective barriers were there. And so what I'd really like to see happen is, a community conversation around this. Again, I don't think that these issues are so intractable that we can't talk about it neighbor to neighbor, hopefully over beer someday soon when we're able to do so safely. But I think that we absolutely need to be balancing both parties' interests in this and talking to one another. I actually, when my husband was biking to downtown, he would sometimes run the red light. And I remember a bicyclist coming over to him and saying, hey, we got to respect the right of the road. And that kind of conversation is important. And I think that being very clear about what kinds of barriers we're going to be putting in and when they're going to be putting in and engaging the community is very, very important. Again, I always like to cite the example of what Burton did when we were looking at the Development Review Board project, because they really did engage the community. They went to NPA meetings, they talked to people about the issues, they read their concerns, and then they incorporated it into the project. And that's really what I'd like to see happening going forward with any sort of changes to the North Avenue. Process matters.
Awesome. And Kerin, the same question to you. How do you propose balancing the safety of bicyclists with the use of vehicles on North Ave and the aesthetics of the neighborhood?
Yeah, I definitely, I have to agree that this is one of those conversations that did not happen. And it was inflammatory down here. People were outraged and they felt left out of the conversation. And I'm really, really, it's a really good feeling to hear someone else say that. Kienan and I have talked a couple of times, but there just wasn't enough involvement. There wasn't enough engagement. And so I'm reminded of when City Market expanded into off of Flynn Avenue. there was a lot of community engagement. That was NPAs, there were neighborhood forums. John Tashiro called his own meetings and really engaged the community. Nobody wants to hear tractor trailer trucks delivering in their backyard. No one wants to have extra parking, people parked in their spot. And it was a real opportunity to engage the community, as an institution. So I would advocate for that. The cones, okay, they're unsightly, but they're a little better than the porcupine humps, whatever those were, the things that were here before the cones that, got eaten up by the snowplows. And again, talk about not thinking it through. And I think there's always great ideas in a community. Just like there's, it's not your job as a community leader or any type of leader to come up with what's best for the people that are closest to what impacts them. And so with the bike lanes, there's a lot of issues at a city level where more community input need to be put in this. And this one is a lightning rod for the new North End. So I don't have very much to add to that. I would definitely engage this community with whatever comes next.
Next question is about police oversight. For this one, Kerin, you will go first. Okay, it's kind of long, so bear with me. The racial justice resolution passed this summer advises the council to consider charter changes that would provide authority for the citizen-led police commission to be involved in police disciplinary decisions. The Charter Changes Committee is also considering the establishment of an independent department with staff to review all police complaints and disciplinary actions. What are your thoughts on this?
Thank you for asking. I'm hoping for one meeting tomorrow, but it could go to two. So the Police Commission it does provide citizen oversight. The Police Commission is predominantly, it's very diverse. It's been the diverse in the city's history, and I'm very, very proud of that. Love to be on the commission, love to be part of solutions. I don't believe that the charter change proposal for a citizen oversight board I think it's going to have a price tag. I think people are not going to be able to afford it. I think it will be a ballot item, so we'll have to vote on it. But in my mind, the Police Commission provides that oversight. And I think there's some misunderstanding about how the Police Commission operates. The Police Commission, the police chief and all, no police staff are part of the Police Commission. It is just citizens who don't get paid, volunteering long hours to work through the process. Is there oversight needed? Absolutely. Do we provide that? Yes. And there's been a number of changes that have been made on the commission that, once again, folks are not aware of. People were not engaged in the conversation. But, we see every complaint that comes into the portal, and in executive session, we do make decisions on discipline. Do we need more power on the commission? Yes. But I would advocate to strengthen the Police Commission's powers, give the Police Commission a little bit more power, as opposed to having a separate board with a paid director and paid staff. Right now, the city just cannot afford that.
Yeah, I'm really proud to have put together an extensive memo for Councilor Freeman, Councilor Carpenter, and Representative Hooper on this exact issue. I wish I had about 15 minutes to talk about this issue, and I'm sure Kerin does too, but it's a complicated issue. And, historically, when you think about use of force incidents or the ways that police sometimes violate community expectations, there's many different layers of oversight, but historically, the community has never had an opportunity to sort of impart its view of an incident. And I think it's so important that we allow the community that opportunity and that there be repercussions for that, because it actually matters for public safety. If the community doesn't trust their police department, if they don't think that the police are doing a job that is motivated by anything but good deeds, then they're not going to participate in the process. Think about what it would mean if someone was calling in an Amber Alert and the community just refused to engage because they didn't trust the police department. That means that crime goes unsolved. That's a problem. And so community oversight allows us to not only engage with the police department, but to say, look, your use of force incident or the incident that you engaged in, it may have been constitutional. It may not have violated the own police department's policies, but it violated the expectations the community has in our police department. And we need need to have a restorative conversation around that. And I think that, I'm proud to have put forward this proposal of increasing the powers of the police commission. I don't necessarily agree that we need an entirely new body, but I'm very excited to see this conversation moving forward because, again, we're Burlington. We're leaders on what it means to not only rethink like public safety, but what it means to engage in the restorative justice process and what it means to make sure that we're holding each other accountable. I have a lot of respect for the police officers that live out here in the New North End. I think many of you have a very difficult job, and I really do appreciate the great work that the vast majority of you do.
Awesome. A popular topic of conversation tonight is about community engagement. And I have a good one in the chat here about it. How has community engagement prepared you to represent the residents of wards 4 and 7? Can you give specific examples of what you've taken away from those experiences that you've had around community engagement? And this time we'll start with Kienan.
I love this question. You all know that community is very important to me. And the reason why is both from a theoretical sense, but also in a practical sense. Research after research shows that when neighbors know one another, when communities are engaged with one another, they're much more resilient to crises. And we're actually seeing that play out right now in the COVID pandemic. Because we're all connected, because I know if Nicole and Christine are having a problem, I can go to the grocery store and get them groceries. That means that as we're moving through this crisis, someone is there checking in on their neighbors and making sure that they're safe. For me, it was all about the community dinner. I heard from many neighbors that we wanted more community connection out here. We wanted more engagement. And for years, people said we couldn't possibly do it. No one wants it. And we managed to do it. And what was so great about it is it brought everyone together over great food. You could connect with your neighbors about issues that were happening before the MPA in a, relaxed environment. And it's important to be doing that because I'm very concerned about the kind of, partisan rhetoric that comes from the national level seeping into our communities. Look, we're neighbors, we're Vermonters, we know each other, we care about each other. And if I see you in Hannaford's, I'm going to be excited to see you. I want to talk about how your kid's doing on the soccer team. And I want to talk to you, obviously when it's safe and I got a mask on, of course, but I want to know that you're doing okay and that we as a community are engaging. And so that's my commitment to you. I've shown it through my actions. And I think that it's vitally important that we all continue to do that. I think, what the Heineberg Senior Center did with the Senior Buddy Program was incredible. It allowed us to not only make sure that our older neighbors were getting the support they needed through the COVID crisis, but it allowed me to develop a great relationship with someone at the Heineberg Senior Center, which I never would have had an opportunity to do. Community matters, and it's important to me.
Awesome. Kerin, the same question to you.
Sure. My internet connection, I'm so sorry. I have to agree 110%. And community engagement does matter. For me, I like the way Kienan brought in the national election. For me, that was a time to snap into action. For me, I know that I have neighbors across the street at the CHT development and down the road, down to Northgate, that I got a lot of questions on voting. I got a lot of questions about ballots. And, during a pandemic, I still masked up and invited folks into my workspace, invited folks to my front porch, and actually led people through the ballot process. And that was a huge thing for me. I'll never forget it as long as I live. And that's my specific example here. For me, community service and community connection, I didn't live here. I took a pay cut to be in the city, because it's awesome. And being here, serving community, being with community, working at a beloved community institution, 1 minute, is really the way that I engage. And, I get to engage with the entire community. I get to engage with kids. I get to engage with parents. But specific examples out here, I love the gym. That's where I was a member of that gym for 11 years. COVID's really kind of taken a lot out of I do have an elderly mother that I take care of. It's taken a lot out of me getting around, but I've really enjoyed constituent conversations, just calling people on the list. Just calling the voter roll and engaging, because that's what I do. That's what I do. I want to get in front of people. I remember I said today to somebody, this is awkward. This is weird. I can't really do what I'm the best at, which is face-to-face. And, we've got neighbors here, our neighbors all around us. our Nancy next door, we know, and I get what Keenan's saying. We know when there's an emergency. We know when there's a problem. We know when there's alarm going off. So yeah, I'm happy and proud of this community. And, I'm engaging in it now, but helping people vote, helping people shop, no time. I love it. Love the question.
Here's a question that has just come over chat. So this one, let's see, I guess that Kerin, you will go first. It's impossible to find a daycare for a little child in all neighborhoods of Burlington. The wait list is over a year and it's extremely expensive. These things affect the very opportunity for parents to work and support their families. Any ideas about how to address this problem?
Thank you for that question, and thanks for asking. As a single mom, for so many years, that was always the question. And I was very lucky to have my mother to be able to help me. Without my mother, I would not have been able to go to school, and I would not have been able to work. I wouldn't even be here on this call. Suggestions for daycare. I've been looking into starting a cooperative daycare that would be modeled very simply, much like the co-op. It would be a membership model, fee-based, sliding fee-based scale. I've looked at that with a couple of different people. I've looked at it with the Small Business Administration. I switched jobs, so I didn't follow up on it, but that's one of my ideas. And, I'd really like to see that addressed at a city level. I know that when I'm working at ECHO, we're really partnering with institutions that do have, first Fresh Start and daycare, but they're all full. And I totally get it. And I think we need to make it a priority. These are the things, this is why I'm running for city council, because things like this, need to be discussed at a city level. And I know that they have been to some extent, but this is a real worry. We saw at ECHO that we could not close down completely, and we got certified to do childcare because there just wasn't enough in the city. And so that was our idea. That was an idea that was sponsored by our donors, but there has to be, maybe one idea is to take that program that we qualified for because of the pandemic and expand on it post-pandemic, and make it easier for places to become care facilities like ECHO, like any other institution. It's nothing quite like ECHO, but other institutions that would be able to help with this and expand that program beyond the pandemic.
Thank you. Same question, Kienan.
Yeah, no, this is a great question, and I love it because, it's such an important issue, particularly for people living here in the neighborhood. I've had a number of friends who've had kids and, attorneys who are like, wow, it's cheaper for me to stay at home than it is for me to put my kid in childcare. And if it's not accessible for attorneys, it's certainly not accessible for someone who is working, a 9-to-5 or someone who's working a minimum wage job. And I think that there's a combination of issues here. So Karina Driscoll and I actually worked pretty closely with a couple who was trying to build a childcare center out here in the New North End. We had looked at the house that Matt Hurlbert's currently trying to sell right across from the Hannafords, and it was just not economically feasible. I think that we need to be looking at some of the zoning requirements that we have in place, particularly out here in the New North End. And there's ways that we can favor making it easier and more accessible for the childcare facilities to be developed, because if we expedite the development process for them, if we make it easier for folks to get through development, if we sort of rethink zoning out here in the New North End so that we allow those care facilities to come into place, then it just reduces the cost of developing them, and it reduces the cost, the entry costs associated with it. I love Kerin's idea of using other community connections to continue to augment childcare, because it is so vitally important that we give parents an opportunity to find affordable childcare. It's an equity issue. If one parent has to stay home, you're asking that parent to give up a career that they may have worked years to invest in. And I think that, the more that we explore some of these zoning restrictions and kind of lifting them, and getting rid of some of the unintended consequences, and again, speeding through the development process for these kinds of development, I think would be a nice step in the right direction to making developing childcare facilities a lot more attractive and a lot more feasible.
Thank you, Kienan. So I just looked at my phone and it is 7:54. So we are out of time for questions. I just want to thank you both very much for running, for your obvious enthusiasm and engagement and commitment to the new North End that I know I share, and many of the folks who are watching and all of our neighbors share. So thank you for that. And so now Kerin has 2 minutes for sort of wrap up comments, and then Kienan will have 2 minutes after that.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've learned something about this community through this conversation, and I've learned something about, I can't even call Kienan an opponent, because some of the ideas that I'm hearing and the enthusiasm that I'm hearing is just what we need in community. And I think that it's really important right now to think about each other. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and you know what? I'm really proud of the North District for putting in. We're just 2 candidates. There's another candidate. I mean, you have to be proud of this community to have people as active as they are coming out here saying, look, I don't really have the time, but I want to make the time because I really care about the people who live here and I want to do the right thing. And, like I said, I'm not a politician. I got on the police commission because I thought it was the right thing to do. And, I really didn't hear enough representation at a city level for the people who live in my neighborhood. So I am happy to be here, happy to be, even for a moment, happy to, I love the 1 minute sign. No, it's not a moment, it's a minute, Kerin. Happy to be here, happy to be involved in this conversation, happy to get new ideas and be energized, and just, all around happy to be part of this neighborhood.
I really appreciate all the time and effort that went into getting this together. I think this is exactly the kind of community conversation we should be having beyond even today. I think that, what makes our neighborhood special is exactly what Kerin said, which is that we all care deeply about not only our neighbors, but the way that our community is represented and the way that we engage with the city and the way that we engage with the state of Vermont. We've got a pandemic that's going on, and we're going to get through it. And when we do, we're going to rebuild, and we're going to do so in a way that is inclusive, that brings neighbors forward, that makes sure that our neighbors that were disproportionately impacted through no fault of their own, that they're given the support and the services they need to move forward. I'm running for this position because I care about all of you. I want to make sure you're doing okay. I want to make sure that your families are doing okay. And I want to make sure that your voices are being heard. I really appreciate all of you coming out tonight. And I just want to say again, I hope that all of your families are safe and well. Please stay safe and wear your mask.
Thanks, everybody. This forum will be posted now on the on the same YouTube channel, so you can send out links to your friends who couldn't come to it. People can watch this to learn more about these 2 great candidates. And if you are eligible and you have not registered yet for the caucus, please do so. You need to do so by midnight on Friday, because then the caucus itself is at 1 o'clock. Midnight on Saturday, the 5th, and then the caucus is at 1 o'clock on Sunday. It will be about an hour long, and then you will be emailed a ballot, and you need to vote between 2 and 5. You can also request to vote in person, in which case I will coordinate a volunteer to meet you at the Miller Center to take your ballot. Or you can also have one of us from the committee will come to your office, your house, and bring a ballot to you if you need to stay at home. So please don't let anything keep you from registering for the caucus unless you have already voted in another caucus, and then you can. Thank you. Owen, do you have anything to wrap up?
There's a lot of good questions that we couldn't get to tonight, unfortunately. If you still have questions, you can give either of the candidates a call. You can email them, and you can check out their campaign websites. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I just put the link to sign up for the caucus in the chat, and looking forward to seeing folks, hopefully, on Sunday at the caucus.